In this episode, I'm chatting with Brett Grayson, author of What Could Go Wrong? My Mostly Comedic Journey Through Marriage, Parenting, and Depression. Brett is a husband, father of two, and a successful trial attorney. In our chat, we talk about his mission to share with candor and honesty about his own and his family's journey with mental health and other issues by using his signature sense of humor. Hello and welcome to the Sunshine Parenting Podcast, where each week we talk about ideas for raising kids who become thriving adults. I'm your host, Audrey Monkey. I'm a summer camp director, writer, and speaker, and I've had the privilege of working with thousands of children, teenagers, young adult counselors, and parents over the past 3 decades. My husband, Steve, and I are raising 5 kids who currently range in age from 15 to 25. So my interest in raising kind, optimistic, self-reliant kids who become thriving adults is personal as well as professional. Well, today I'm excited to welcome Brett Grayson to the podcast. He's the author of the soon-to-be-released book, What Could Go Wrong? My Mostly Comedic Journey Through Marriage, Parenting, and Depression. Welcome, Brett. Glad to have you on.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity.
So tell a little bit about yourself and your background and how you ended up writing this particular book.
Well, I'm from Long Island, New York, and I grew up out there and went through that process. Went to college, went to law school in Brooklyn, and my wife and I moved out to New Jersey about 2013 around. We, for people that don't know, the New York New Jersey battle is like a North-South Civil War type battle. And for a long time, my family's from there, her family's from here, and like most good marriages, I lost the battle and we wound up in New Jersey. So yes, so we've been living out here ever since. And I practiced law, driving into the city every single day, going through that process. And I dabbled in writing for years and years, but I never really got my act together. And in about 2016, 2.5 years ago now, I sat down one day and just, said, I think it's time to write about some of the things that we've been through. We've definitely gone through some funny experiences, and we've gone through some pretty trying times as well. And I said to my wife, do you feel comfortable with this? Me sort of going into everything that we've been through. And she felt that it was something that'd be relatable for a lot of people. And she said, if you can find a way to convey this in a comedic, but of course, way that people can relate to, give it a shot. So about 2 years ago, I sat down and started writing this thing, and here we are. It's hard to imagine that we've gotten this far, but finally here.
Yeah, well, that's so exciting. Tell a little bit, because I was reading through your book, and it really has some great little funny anecdotes. So how old are your kids now? Because you obviously are writing about a time that was quite a long time ago.
Yeah, my daughter was 6. My daughter is 6.
Okay.
And my son is 4.
Okay.
So the book takes place from the time of my wife's pregnancy with my daughter, so figure 7 years ago, until my kids were around 4 and 2, so until about 2 years ago. So it covers about a 6-year period. We're out of diapers now. We're a little bit. A couple of years makes a huge difference in the life of little kids. Our life's a little different now than it was 2 years ago. But they're not teenagers. I mean, there's definitely some things that are still happening that are funny, and that I'm taking notes down on.
Right.
But at some point I had to cut it off.
Yeah.
So yeah, I sort of cut it off at that point a couple of years ago.
Right. So tell me also, I noticed you have a blog. How long have you been writing these little anecdotes and stories on your blog? I'm assuming that preceded when you started writing the book.
No, it did not, and it does for 90% of people. I did things backwards.
Okay.
I wasn't even aware there was a huge blogging community. I mean, I knew that people blogged. I wasn't aware there's a huge dad blogging community, a huge mom
Right.
blogging community, and I was relatively. I wasn't very involved in social media leading up to this process of writing the book. I wrote the book, finished it, and I got a publicist, and the publicist basically said to me, about a year ago now, said to me, you need to develop a social media presence. You really need to get yourself out there because people are not going to be interested in hearing your story unless they know a little bit about you first, unless they know you can write. You need to blog a little bit. So about a year ago, even less than a year ago, late April, I put my first blog up. And ever since then, I started, even before that, actually going back to February, I got on Twitter. I started tweeting little funny anecdotes. And I've slowly, over the course of the six months, I would say 6 to 7 months period, have been building up a little bit of a following. Not quite where I'd want to be as far as developing that. That can take place over the course of years. But I had already written the book, so at some point I said, look, I've released a bunch of them. I've been featured on a couple pretty big sites, which has definitely helped. And as a result of that, I sort of felt, look, I have enough of a following now that maybe people will be interested in buying it, and doing pretty well so far. You had mentioned before, you had said that's about to come out. It came out last Tuesday, actually.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Okay.
y- yeah. So it's been a good first week. I can't complain. And so far, I don't understand any of these Amazon ranks or sales or anything like that yet. I'm still learning that process, but so far the feedback, the reviews have been pretty good, and the sales from what they're indicating to me seem to be okay so far. So I feel pretty good about that.
Great. Well, that's amazing. I think you have a somewhat unique voice in that obviously the whole mommy blogger world and people writing about things like postpartum depression is, seems to mostly be female. So I think it's great that you've kind of put your voice in. And also it's wonderful, I think, how you're able to combine kind of difficult topics that like you said, a lot of people are facing with your humor. So I think that probably is resonating with people, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think that to answer the first thing that you were discussing, the mommy blogger, there are certainly plenty of dad bloggers out there. So I don't know that I'm reinventing the wheel in that sense, but I definitely find that there's more of a mom blogger presence on this. And as far as the pregnancy is concerned, there are a couple of books out there that are terrific. The guy who actually gave me the blurb for the back of my book, Adrian Culp, just wrote a terrific book that he released about the process of going through the pregnancy. But the way I wanted to look at it was, I sort of said, we've been through a couple of things that are rough to go through without going into too much detail. My wife's first pregnancy, some postpartum issues, things that are topics that women go through a lot. And I hadn't really seen too many fathers talking about it from their standpoint, what it was like for the father to go through, what our emotions were like. I think sometimes there's this feeling that guys are not always as emotional or not always as connected to the pregnancy or to some of the events that occur, which is not accurate, but sometimes they portray that, and really that's not the case. I mean, we went through a lot of this stuff together. I went through a lot of emotions. I struggled with my own mental health. I've struggled with it for years, unrelated to this, but obviously it was exacerbated by some of these experiences. And I felt it was great to share that maybe it would open up, some people to feeling comfortable talking about it themselves, and also feeling like they could relate to it as well. So that was sort of, how I did. Now, as far as the humor is concerned, I think that writing about yourself or making it interesting in the sense of just writing about terrible things that occur can get rough to read, can get boring. People don't always necessarily want to hear about other people's problems unless the people are either conveying something that, again, they can relate to, or also, that can teach them something. So I really felt that, that the humor would be my the way that I would do that, the way that people would start to feel they could relate to what I was saying and would make it more palatable to read. So that was sort of the reason behind the humor.
Yeah, I think it really resonates well, and I really like. Actually, I hadn't even thought about that because, of course, I'm a woman reading it. But you're so right that these things that happen, maybe in like a pregnancy, it's all about like the books mostly are talking about the woman's experience and what's going on. But it's true that the father has a lot going on too, and it's like kind of scary and weird and going through these things. So I think you did open up a great line of conversation and discussion for men to talk about. Are you finding that people are getting in touch with you, men, to share their similar experiences? Have you gotten any comments or feedback from men who are kind of feeling like they can talk about it now too because you've talked about it?
Well, with regard to the book, where it's a little bit early in that sense, in the sense that it just came out and people
Right.
are still just getting it and reading it. I, along those same lines, I've released a few blogs about. I'm trying to think the amount of blogs. Maybe I've released 8 or 10 blogs over the course of these months. And the 2 blogs that seemed to resonate the most with people, that I got the most feedback on, that got picked up by larger sites, were blogs talking about some of these rougher things, men's mental health. We've had some issues with my son's health, and gone through that, what that was like as the father, speaking about that. So I found that yes, with regard to some of the earlier blogs that I wrote, that people were reaching out, people were it was resonating with people, that men go through this also, that men experience all kinds of struggles and emotions, and it's okay to be open about it, and there's nothing. You can still be a strong man and feel masculine in your own skin without feeling like you can't express yourself. So that was definitely something that was surprising to me, because I've also written some funny stuff about camp and about dance recitals and about about stuff like that in some of my blogs, and people will like that, and that's been terrific to get feedback on that as well, but not the same kind of lasting effect as talking about some of these more serious issues.
Right. Well, I don't want to get too sidetracked, but I did mention to you, because of my interest in camp, that I saw that you had posted something about that. So tell me about your experience with that. Was that about your picking up your daughter at camp or visiting her?
Well, she's in day camp. Yeah,
Oh,
it was.
okay.
Yeah. No, sleepaway camp is its own animal, which I remember from growing up myself, and I'm sure I'll be learning about that soon enough. But yeah, I wrote a blog last summer. It was actually interesting because I released a blog right before the summer about the anxiety and depression stigma that a lot of people deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And we went into the summer, and I'm here in the Northeast, and the weather was improving. And I said to myself, you know what? It's the summer. Let's lighten things up a little bit. So I released 3 different blogs over the summer that were completely that had no seriousness to them whatsoever. One was about my daughter's dance recital and what that's like for the parent. Another one was about a family trip we took to Hershey Park, and the middle one was about visiting her. Going to day camp and visiting her, and just how strange that was, from seeing it from the parent's standpoint. Number one, just how amazing camp is. Like, when you're a kid, you don't really appreciate it. It's the greatest thing in the entire world, seeing what they do all day, every day. But just also some of the silly things that come up. Like, I think I talk about my daughter when they were grading her swimming, and how all the parents are trying to get their kids moved up into higher swimming categories, and the funny little parenting things that we all go through. And I'm trying to remember other things that happened, during the course of that day. Talking about the cookies at the camp that I wound up taking because they were so good. My daughter raved about them every night. That kind of funny stuff.
Sure.
And people seem to like it over the course of the summer because everybody was going through it at the time. Now it's 3 degrees out here in New York, or
Oh,
New Jersey. I'm sorry.
yes.
It's 3 degrees out in New Jersey, so it's like it's hard to picture what that was like. But But yeah, it was a fun thing to write over the summer.
So just out of curiosity, what day camp did your daughter go to?
She goes to Woodmont Day Camp up in New
Woodmont.
City.
Yep, I've
Yeah.
definitely heard about that. Okay, cool. Well, that is so fun. Well, is there anything else that are you able to share with people, like resources that you found most helpful, or if people are going through similar things right now, where do you refer people to or tell them to do if they're facing these like mental health things, either with themselves as a man or with their wife going through postpartum? Where do you send people usually?
Well, it's pretty standard, but I mean, I have a therapist who I speak with, that I've been speaking with for a bunch of years. I think that uh, it's amazing to me that it's totally okay to have a heart problem. It's totally okay to and go see a doctor. It's totally okay to have to break a bone and go see an orthopedist. But if for some reason, if you're going to see a doctor for any issue with your brain, that needs to be secretive in some sense. I never understood that. I think that hopefully we're breaking down those walls now. But I don't think that I could even be functioning if it wasn't for having somebody to speak to each week. I
Hmm.
think that it's very hard to bottle a lot of stuff inside. Life can be really hard. We can go through a lot of challenges, and there's nobody really in any of our lives that doesn't have any stake or dog in the fight that you can really talk to about it, because most of the time they're half the subject of the issues that you're dealing with. Talking to your parents, talking to your wife, half of our problems are with these people in our lives.
Right.
Are with the relationships we have. So I speak to somebody every week, and I'm amazed that when I talk to somebody who is going through things and says they haven't talked to somebody before, it's very hard to find somebody that's good. I've certainly cycled through them in my early years of therapy, and eventually I settled on someone out here who really cares about me and means a lot to me, and meets with me each week. And he's been a tremendous source for me to talk out my problems with. So in terms of that, that's one thing. And the other thing I think is to just have openness in your own relationships in your life. I think if you cannot tell your spouse that you're struggling, if you're embarrassed, if you think that that takes away some level of attraction from you or something like that, I think that you have a real problem. I think that you need to be able to lean on each other and explain to each other, look, I'm really struggling here. And my wife and I, we've had our problems. We've spoken to, we've seen a marriage counselor a few different times. But overall, I think we're both very comfortable talking to each other about our struggles. And I think that that is very important, especially, considering that's the person you're going to be going home to every night. And that's the person that you're going to, you can't really hide anything from. You can hide things from other people in your life, but to hide something from your spouse is a whole other thing.
Well, that is such great advice. And boy, I hope lots of people read your book because, and especially men, but women too, because I think you have a really important message to share. And I think it's wonderful that you've just kind of put yourself out there and shared some difficult stories. And I think your end result will hopefully be more people being willing to get the help that, like you said, pretty much everyone needs at some point, if not throughout their life. So this has been so great. And thank you for your courage in writing the book and sharing your story with everyone.
Well, thank you. The one thing I just wanted to add to it is, the book opens without giving the whole introduction away, with a romantic night with my wife that's interrupted by our daughter. The book is 90% the absurdities of parenting and pregnancy and comedy. It's certainly not a book that is going to be, that I think is hard to read or is depressing to read. And in no way am I taking away from all of this stuff becoming, the more serious issues becoming important. And if that's what turns people on to it, I certainly am okay with that as well. But the book is largely comedy, and I hope it is that way, because I think in general people want to read something that will make them laugh more than anything else. So I hope that is something that people will read or take a look at and hopefully enjoy.
Absolutely. And I think even with hard things, humor sometimes helps us move forward. So I think that there's a reason why the humor in your book works so well.
But thank you. So I really appreciate the opportunity, and it was great speaking with you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Brett, and we'll look forward to hearing more about your blog posts and future books and everything else. Thanks for being here. Thank you so much for listening. As always, the notes and links about everything we discussed are available on my website at sunshine-parenting.com. I'd love to send you my free ebook download, 3 Effective Strategies for Raising Kids Who Become Thriving Adults. It's available on my website when you subscribe to my weekly email. I'm having so much fun connecting with camp directors from all across the United States in my Camp Director interview series called Happy Campers Interviews. We're talking about the social and emotional growth as well as the character traits and life skills that kids gain at summer camp. To see the full schedule of interviews with links to the camp websites, visit my website at sunshine-parenting.com and click on the Happy Campers Interviews link. If you happen to be listening to this episode on the day that it's being released, February 1st, I'd like to wish you a happy I Heart Camp Day. If you search the hashtag #IHeartCamp, that's hashtag IHEARTCAMP on Instagram, you'll see just how far and wide the love of summer camp goes. I'd like to leave you with a quote I shared this week on Instagram and Facebook. It's one of my favorite quotes, and it serves as a great reminder about how to live our days. It's from Maya Angelou. At the end of the day, people won't remember what you said or did. They will remember how you made them feel.
This podcast is a proud member of Parents on Demand, a network of high-quality shows for families just like yours. Download our free network app on Apple and Android and listen to your favorite episodes on the go.